This is a Fox News alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. Right now, Donald Trump's resurgent presidential campaign, after getting an infusion of hope from the FBI Friday, appears to be getting an infusion of cash, too, and a major infusion at that. Meanwhile, for Hillary Clinton, past expectations of a home stretch on cruise control have been detoured. And on this Halloween night, a campaign that Democrats once described as a dream come true for Hillary Clinton is now dealing with a nightmare narrative. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Carl Cameron's with the Trump campaign in Michigan as the Republican looks for votes and money for the stretch run in several traditionally blue states. Jennifer Griffin as Hillary Clinton supporters, acknowledged or not, gang up on the FBI director. Catherine Herridge has new details tonight from sources about where the FBI is right now in the investigation of newly discovered emails that have reignited the Clinton email scandal and the Clinton Foundation investigations. But we begin with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry and some big casino money going all in on Donald Trump. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. This is a Fox News exclusive from two senior Republicans who tell me billionaire Sheldon Adelson has just now committed a stunning $25 million to a super PAC controlled by the Ricketts family in Chicago. It's going to be hitting Hillary Clinton with corruption ads, a massive number in the final week. It helps Republicans down ballot, but also is a sign big money Republicans who doubted Trump are now betting big as revelations from the FBI and WikiLeaks heat up.
Sources tell Fox News as Donald Trump campaigned yesterday at Sheldon Adelson's Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, the two casino magnates met for a private chat, though Trump made only a brief public mention of Adelson and his wife Miriam.
Really incredible people, and they've been so supportive, and we appreciate it.
That support now includes $25 million from the Adelsons to an anti-Hillary Clinton super PAC backed by TD Ameritrade founder Joe Ricketts and his wife Marlene. The PAC, Future 45, as in the 45th president, has already been running an ad comparing Clinton to Richard Nixon. Now they have new fodder from WikiLeaks with an email the night before Clinton's first news conference on the email scandal showing advisor Philippe Reines declaring they would be, quote, dropping the bomb, that 33,000 emails were deleted. Another email shows Clinton's own chief strategist Joel Benenson wrote in February 2015 the campaign was, quote, dealing with brush fires from the Clinton Foundation. Benenson added it might be time to ban foreign donations. Then 8 days later, Bill Clinton's top aide wrote to John Podesta cryptically, foreign government donors, all the money is in, including at least $12 million Fox News first reported that Hillary Clinton raised from the King of Morocco. Today, the Daily Caller revealed the foundation may have gotten $28 million because millions more poured in from Morocco's state-owned phosphate company. Also new fallout today for interim DNC chair Donna Brazile, who tried to deny she gave the Clinton campaign inside information from CNN.
With the exact wording of a question asked at the March 13th CNN TV1 town hall debate.
Kelly,
where did you get it?
You know, as a Christian woman, I understand persecution, but I will not sit here and be persecuted because your information is totally false.
New emails today show while she was a CNN contributor, Brazile said of questions from that town hall, quote, I'll send a few more. And before CNN's March debate in Michigan during the water crisis, Brazile told a Clinton aide one of the questions directed to HRC tomorrow is from a woman with a rash. She will ask what, if anything, will Hillary do as president to help the people of Flint. The network today announced on October 14th, CNN accepted Donna Brazile's resignation. We are completely uncomfortable with what we have learned about her interactions with the Clinton campaign. Trump told Fox that Brazile should also resign from the DNC.
The system's rigged when Donna Brazile can get the questions to a debate and can give those questions to crooked Hillary Clinton.
Now, the Ricketts initially spent millions trying to stop Trump, and there were recent reports Adelson was mad at Trump and done giving him money. This is a sign the Ricketts and the Adelsons now think Trump could win. I'm hearing tonight the $25 million from Adelson, it's a floor, not a ceiling. There's more money coming this week.
And that would perhaps give confidence to other donors who have been on the sidelines.
They've been on the sidelines and saying, look, if he's putting 25 or more in, maybe they should as well.
All right, Ed, thank you. We are learning more tonight about just what may be in the tens of thousands of emails discovered on the computer shared by Huma Abedin and her husband, disgraced former Congressman Anthony Weiner. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has the latest on that part of the story.
FBI forensic experts have developed a program with key search terms, and the process of sifting through the records on Anthony Weiner's computer has begun. Late Sunday, the FBI got a warrant allowing investigators to read the content to determine if the emails are new or duplicates of records provided to the State Department. An intelligence source said the preliminary search turned up hits for State Department records as well as emails from the Clinton server. While President Obama's spokesman seemed to chastise FBI Director James Comey's decision to notify Congress, Josh Earnest insisted the White House is neutral.
I'll neither defend nor criticize what Director Comey has decided to communicate to the public about this investigation.
A source close to Weiner's legal team tells Fox's Brett Baer that it seems his laptop was used to back up his estranged wife's smartphone contacts and in the process backed up all of Huma Abedin's emails. Fox is told the records appear to cover the time period when Huma Abedin was at the State Department with then Secretary Hillary Clinton. Writing in the Washington Post, former Attorney General Eric Holder said Comey breached a long-standing principle that investigations should not be announced or publicly discussed 60 days before an election. A senior Democrat went further.
You don't want to appear to be putting your hand on the scale. And here he opens up the FBI to the accusation that is trying to have an impact on the outcome.
A former Attorney General under President Bush was also uncomfortable.
You don't comment on investigations because commenting on the investigation may jeopardize the investigation, and that's the box that he's put himself in.
But on special report, the Republican chairman of the House Benghazi Committee, whose investigators uncovered Clinton's use of private email, said Comey is unfairly targeted.
Jim Comey's not responsible for a single one of the facts at hand. He didn't tell her to use a private server. He didn't tell Huma not to turn over all of her devices. And God knows he didn't tell Anthony Weiner to send sexually explicit texts to allegedly underage people.
And late today, the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee sent this letter to Director Comey with questions about the new emails. And buried in the text are new allegations from a whistleblower that Clinton mishandled classified information overseas. The congressman writes, I also understand that former Secretary Clinton left classified documents in her hotel room in China and that U.S. Marine Corps security officials filed a report related to the possible compromise of the documents. We are reaching out to the Clinton campaign for comment, Brett.
Okay, Catherine, thank you. Well, what do you think? Do you think this will make a difference in the election? And if so, how much of one? Let me know on Twitter at Brett Baer. Use the hashtag Special Report, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BrettBaerSR. There is still no sign of the usually visible Huma Abedin in the Clinton traveling party, but there are signs that many of Clinton's colleagues have acquired a new target for their wrath, the director of the FBI.
I am sure they will reach the same conclusion they did when they looked at my emails for the last year. There is no case here.
She was eager to attempt to shift the attention, both the public's and the FBI's, to Trump.
Of course, the people Donald Trump has around him include two men whose activities are reportedly being investigated for their ties to Russia.
At the White House today, spokesman Josh Earnest said the president still has faith in FBI Director James Comey, adding,
The president doesn't believe that Director Comey is intentionally trying to influence the outcome of an election. The president doesn't believe that he's secretly strategizing to benefit one candidate or one political party.
Some of Comey's loudest critics are Democrats on Capitol Hill, who just 3 months ago had nothing but praise for the FBI director after he said there was not enough evidence to prosecute Clinton.
This is a great man. We are very privileged in our country to have him be the director of the FBI.
Republicans are continuing the questioning of his integrity, which they'll get no place on that.
The Senate Minority Leader upped the ante, accusing Comey of committing a crime. Quote, I am writing to inform you that my office has determined that these actions may violate the Hatch Act, which bars FBI officials from using their official authority to influence an election. Through your partisan actions, you may have broken the law. Despite Democrats saying Comey's actions are unprecedented, they're forgetting when an independent counsel who was appointed by a Republican attorney general announced his decision to indict former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger for his role in the Iran-Contra affair, just days before Governor Bill Clinton defeated President George H. Bush.
Jennifer Griffin with the Clinton campaign. Jennifer, thank you. Donald Trump's top aide says he will not use the FBI's new email investigation as the centerpiece of his campaign in the final days.
Our country will continue to suffer. She's unfit and unqualified to be the President of the United States, and her election would mire our government and our country in a constitutional crisis that we cannot afford.
With the FBI director under fire from the left, Trump, who previously criticized the FBI and the Department of Justice as corrupt, backed up James Comey.
He brought back his reputation. He brought it back. He's got to hang tough because there's a lot of people want him to do the wrong thing. What he did was the right thing.
The latest Emerson polls in key battleground states show a tie in Ohio at 45%. In Florida, it's a toss-up, Clinton 46, Trump 45. In North Carolina, Clinton's up within the margin of error at 48-45. In Wisconsin, Clinton's up 6, still within the margin. And in Nevada, too, a virtual tie with Trump down 2 points. A new Washington Post ABC News poll shows Trump and Clinton equally unpopular statistically. 60% have an unfavorable view of Clinton, 58% don't like Trump. At the National Press Club in Washington, billionaire PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel, who for the first time publicly said he's gay at the July Republican convention and is one of the nation's largest investors in legalized cannabis, explained why the Trump train is rolling and not going away.
He points toward a new Republican Party beyond the dogmas of Reaganism.
With Clinton burdened by the FBI's renewed investigation, Trump's retargeting states where Clinton has had a slight edge. Michigan and Wisconsin today and tomorrow, and Colorado and New Mexico over this past weekend. Brett?
Okay, Carl, thank you. Tonight, part 3 in our series looking at how Bill and Hillary Clinton used the Clinton Foundation to further their professional and personal agendas. The FBI had long been investigating Hillary Clinton's use of private email as Secretary of State for clues into possible links between the Clinton Foundation and State Department business. As you're about to see, those FBI agents were not the only ones peering into what's been called the Clinton blur, the controversial mix of money and politics, diplomacy and personal interest, all so interconnected that it's easy to get lost.
It's so hard when you look at the Clintons to try to figure out where the charity ends and begins, where their profit-making ends and begins, and where their official powers as Secretary of State or Senator ends and begins. And the problem is they all get blurred together.
Peter Schweitzer, author of Clinton Cash, took us through a number of these cases.
Beginning in 2009, the Swedish telecom giant Ericsson is coming under increasing pressure in the United States because it's selling telecom equipment to repressive governments around the world. In the midst of all of this, they decide to pay Bill Clinton to give a speech for the first time ever. They pay him a whopping $750,000.
Soon after, Hillary Clinton's State Department urged new, broader sanctions against Iran. But the guidelines did not include telecom, which is Ericsson's business. Ericsson told us President Clinton was chosen for his perceived strong attraction power and selected from a list of many potential speakers with crowd pull. The company has told Fox News the conversation regarding Iran had no impact on this decision. In June 2010, Bill Clinton was in Colombia.
Bill Clinton meets with the then president of Colombia, Uribe, to discuss matters in private. What's curious is that Hillary Clinton is in Colombia at the same time. And after Bill leaves the presidential palace, Hillary Clinton comes in and has lunch with the president of Colombia, where she signs some technical agreements and explains her commitment to a free trade agreement between Colombia and the United States.
The very same trade agreement she had pledged to defeat while running for president in 2008.
As I have said for months, I oppose the deal, I have spoken out against the deal, I will vote against the deal, and I will do everything I can to urge the Congress to reject the Colombian free trade deal.
Also in Colombia with Bill Clinton was Frank Giustra, a billionaire businessman and family friend. Let's go down the timeline as you have it.
Frank Giustra, a Canadian billionaire, arrives in Colombia with Bill Clinton on June 8th, 2010. Hillary, at that same time, meets with President Uribe. What's troubling is in that the days that follow, Frank Giustra, who is one of the largest contributors to the Clinton Foundation, sees not one, not two, but actually 3 of his companies get major concessions from the Uribe government in Colombia.
Neither President Uribe or Frank Giustra ever responded to our requests for comment. In May 2015, Giustra did release a statement that said, in part, suggestions that his contributions to the Clinton Foundation were made to further his business interests are not true. After the 2010 earthquake in Haiti, the Clintons pushed for a wireless, phone-based money transfer system, a useful way to allow friends and relatives to send money into the ravaged nation.
The problem is the chief beneficiary from the Clintons' initiative is a company called Digicel that is owned by Dennis O'Brien.
O'Brien is an Irish billionaire who made his money in the telecom industry.
Shortly after the Clintons began reconstruction in Haiti and began handing out contracts, sometime during that period of 2010 or 2011, he made a multi-million-dollar contribution to the Clinton Foundation.
Digicel told us they, quote, entered the Haitian market in May 2006 via a legitimate license tender process and built a very successful business from that point on. They are just a few of the many stories Schweitzer documents in his book. And in his research, there's something he noticed about the payments.
Bill Clinton's average speaking fee is somewhere around $175,000 to $200,000 over the years. The problem is that once Hillary becomes Secretary of State in 2009, the number of big paydays where he gets paid $500,000 or more to give a speech, one speech, overseas, increases dramatically.
Up next, I'll go over to the big board and check the key races in the balance of power. The fight for Congress. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 19 in Cincinnati, as a man is accused of dumping manure in front of the local Democratic Party headquarters in Warren County. The suspect has been arrested and charged with criminal mischief. This is the second election in a row that someone has put manure at that location. Fox 5 in Atlanta with testimony from the ex-wife of a man accused of murder for leaving their toddler son in a hot car. Leanna Taylor says Ross Harris was an involved father and would not have left their child to die on purpose. Prosecutors say Harris did kill his son intentionally to escape the responsibilities of family life. The state rested its case against Harris Friday after 50 witnesses and 16 days of testimony. And this is a live look at Philadelphia from our affiliate Fox 29. The big story there tonight, negotiations aimed at averting a transit strike tomorrow. The nation's sixth largest transit system could shut down if no agreement is reached tonight. The agency is urging riders to come up with backup plans just in case. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back. Night, the balance of power in Congress, a huge story, and control of the U.S. Senate hangs in the balance. Here is our what-if scenario. Republican states in red, Democrats in blue. The gray states don't have a Senate race this time. Judging by the average of polls tonight, if the election were held tonight, Democrats would pick up Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. They'd pull out a squeaker in Pennsylvania. Right now, it's essentially tied in Nevada. Joe Heck, the Republican, has a 0.4% lead. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Catherine Cortez Masto, the Democrat, picks it up. It stays Democrat. Look at this number, 50 to 50. Now, there's one race we haven't even talked about, and that is in the state of Georgia. It is a big lead for the Republican two-term incumbent Johnny Isakson, 49 to 36.8 against the Democrat Jim Barksdale. Here's the problem. In Georgia, Isakson, or whoever's leading, has to get above 50%. Otherwise, the top two finishers head to a runoff January 10th. So there is a scenario where a runoff in Georgia January 10th could decide the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. Another race that we're following very closely, obviously, is right down here in the state of Florida. An incumbent who originally was not even going to seek re-election is now trying to fight off a Democrat who essentially is running against Donald Trump. Correspondent Steve Harrigan shows us tonight from Miami.
The ballots say the contest for the U.S. Senate seat from Florida is between the incumbent Senator, Republican Marco Rubio, and Democratic Congressman Patrick Murphy. But the results could hinge on the national battle between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
If Hillary is able to win the state and win by a big margin, then Marco Rubio may be in big trouble. On the other hand, if Donald Trump can eke out a victory or at least stay competitive, then that's good news for Marco Marco!
The Real Clear Politics poll average has Rubio leading by about 6 points. Murphy's strategy has been simple: to pivot from any question to Donald Trump.
For this year's first debate,
the most dramatic moment of the televised debates came after Rubio accused Murphy of groping a woman, a former girlfriend, and posting the photo on Facebook.
And Congressman, you're the one that posted a picture 4 years on Facebook of you groping a woman. That's inappropriate behavior.
Let's just talk about Donald Trump again.
Murphy says what Rubio really wants is another crack at running for president. Rubio has countered by attacking the two-term congressman as a lightweight.
He's been a ghost. In 4 years in Washington, no one even knew Patrick Murphy was there. He's never done anything before or since he got to Congress. Now he wants to go to the Senate. Florida voters aren't going to do that.
President Barack Obama.
But Rubio's most forceful critic hasn't been Murphy.
Why does Marco Rubio still plan to vote for Donald Trump?
Murphy announced he will use $1 million of his own money to buy television advertising for the final days of the campaign. Brett?
Steve Harrigan in Miami. Steve, thank you. The jury now has the case of two former allies of Republican New Jersey Governor Chris Christie charged with using traffic jams for political revenge. Attorneys wrapped up closing arguments today. Former Christie staffer Bridget Kelly and former Bridge Authority appointee Bill Baroni are charged with scheming to punish a Democratic mayor who refused to endorse Christie. The aides testify that the governor knew about that plan ahead of time. Christie was never charged and has continued to deny any advanced knowledge of the plan. Stocks were down today. The Dow lost 19. The S&P 500 was off 1/4 point. The Nasdaq was down 1. Opposition and government leaders are trying to defuse the ongoing political crisis in Venezuela tonight over deeply unpopular socialist president Nicolas Maduro. The two sides have agreed to talks mediated by a Vatican envoy and several former presidents. There was a massive demonstration against Maduro last week, and another is planned for Thursday. Lawmakers have begun what is essentially a show trial against the president there. We'll keep you updated. Tonight we take you to a village near Mosul, Iraq, that has just been liberated from ISIS control. We hear from the people who live there about their life under terrorist control, and all of this happens as Iraqi forces move closer to the city itself. Correspondent Benjamin Hall has the latest tonight from Erbil.
United by a common enemy, ISIS, militias with different strategic objectives are all putting the squeeze on the terrorist group, and from all sides. After a heavy battle today, Iraqi forces finally reached the edge of Mosul, stopping just a few hundred feet from the eastern city limits. But as they did so, Iranian-backed Shiite militias launched an assault to the west, aimed at driving ISIS from the critical town of Tal Afar. Supported by the Baghdad government, Shiite militias have long been feared by Sunni communities, and now up to 15,000 of them are moving west of Mosul, leading to a potential clash with Turkish-backed Sunni groups. Today, the Pentagon admitted Defense Secretary Ash Carter was worried about the militias.
Of course he's concerned, and he's seen from past history what some of these forces have done. At this moment, our support continues to be through the government of Iraq and Prime Minister Abadi and the forces that are on the ground conducting these operations, and will continue to support those forces operating under the control of the government of Iraq.
He went on to stress the militias were getting no support from the US-backed coalition. Meanwhile today, we were able to gain access to the newly liberated town of Faziliya to see what people were doing with their freedom. The men of this town are queuing up to have their haircuts and their beards shaved off, something that was forbidden under 2.5 years of ISIS rule. So this is where they've all congregated. This is where they're showing their newfound freedom. Today, under the white flags, children were playing with phones for the first time in years. Girls were walking in the streets, and there was immense gratitude towards the Kurdish Peshmerga who had freed them, even though the IEDs had not yet been defused. Many of these villages have been totally destroyed by ISIS, and it's a reminder of just how much work there is ahead to rebuild. Now, towns being liberated by Kurdish fighters and Iraqi conventional forces have a good chance of rebuilding and moving ahead, albeit slowly. But those towns and villages liberated by Shiite militias have a very different danger lying ahead, and that is representative of the danger that Iraq itself faces. Not to mention, one of these Shiite militias has been designated a terrorist organization by the State Department. Brett?
Benjamin Hall, live in Erbil. Benjamin, thank you. Tonight we continue our election countdown series about the issues that matter to you. This evening, health care. The President's Affordable Care Act is now becoming unaffordable, according to many, to the very people it was supposed to help. And lawmakers on both sides agree something major needs to be done about Obamacare. Here's correspondent Rich Edson.
The coverage has been okay. It's not been as great as we would have liked.
Rosemary Knight says she's bought Obamacare insurance since the program's launch. The Hillary Clinton supporter shops for Obamacare in her home state of Florida, where she says she has too few insurance plan choices.
The premiums could be a little lower, the coverage could be a little better.
Since Rosemary and millions of other Americans first bought Obamacare in 2014, premiums have risen, the number of health provider choices has fallen, and major insurance companies have withdrawn, citing billions of losses in the Obamacare market. The administration projects Obamacare insurance premiums next year will increase 22% nationwide, again dragging Obamacare into the 2016 presidential campaign.
Elect me and we will stop the horrible hikes that you're seeing with Obamacare. We will stop the Obamacare madness.
I've been saying we've got to fix what's broken and keep what works.
For Obamacare customers, the less they make, the more taxpayers pitch in to subsidize their premiums. In Florida, a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, making $35,000 a year can get the second cheapest Obamacare option for a monthly premium of about $65. If that same family earns $75,000, taxpayers will cover about half the premium, leaving a monthly cost of about $540. That family is also responsible for $13,000 in expenses before the plan pays anything. Earning more than $100,000, that family receives no subsidies, will pay more than $1,000 a month, and also have a deductible of $13,000.
Even though we are seeing cost increases all across the country, the fact of the matter is we do expect that next year, more than half of the people who seek to purchase health insurance plans through the marketplace will be able to do so for $75 a month or less.
Though for the estimated 9 million customers who choose to buy the same type of insurance plans without the Obamacare exchanges, they receive no subsidies and pay the full cost of the increases. And now even some Democrats acknowledge Congress needs to fix the system.
You've got this crazy system where all of a sudden 25 million more people have health care, and then the people are out there busting it sometimes 60 hours a week, end up with their premiums doubled and their coverage cut in half.
Although Democrats are joining Republicans in criticizing aspects of Obamacare, the presidential candidates are far from agreeing on how to fix health care.
Democrats, progressives, expand the entitlements, spend more so people have affordable health insurance. Republicans spend less so people have affordable health insurance because they think spending too much is the root of the problem.
Donald Trump wants to repeal Obamacare, allow customers from one state to buy insurance from a company in another, and allow more generous tax deductions for health expenses.
Stopping Hillary's health care takeover is one of the single most important reasons that we must win on November 8th.
Hillary Clinton and Democrats say they want to add to Obamacare.
I'm going to fix it because I agree with you. Premiums have gotten too high, co-pays, deductibles, prescription drug costs, and I've laid out a series of actions that we can take to try to get those costs down.
Critics claim a public option would undercut private companies and force the federal government into more of the healthcare market. It's a debate Rosemary says she's closely watching. She says despite Obamacare limits, she appreciates its benefits. It will allow her 22-year-old daughter to stay under her policy for 4 more years.
All the insurance companies were tightening their requirements and were turning us down. It's better than nothing. I mean, yes, there could be improvements to it.
And here on the campaign trail, each Obamacare reference is a reminder of the vast differences between the two on health care. They even disagree on a starting point and whether Obamacare has any role in the future of American health care. Brett?
Rich, thank you. Tomorrow, we crack the top 5 in our Issues That Matter series, the federal deficit. Chief Legal Correspondent Shannon Bream will have that story. Up next, the final 8 days. The panel digs in, tells us what to expect as we come down the home stretch with an incredibly bizarre presidential campaign. Breaking news coming next.
We can be sure that what is in those emails is absolutely devastating. And I think we're going to find out, by the way, the first time. Thank you, Uma.
Now they apparently want to look at emails of one of my staffers, and by all means, they should look at them. And I am sure they will reach the same conclusion they did when they looked at my emails for the last year. There is no case here.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the breaking email story that has been breaking all weekend as the FBI releases a letter to lawmakers and the Assistant Attorney General, rather. We assure you that the department will continue to work closely with the FBI and together dedicate all necessary resources to take appropriate steps as expeditiously as possible. Now, here's the breaking news. We can confirm that the FBI has a preliminary inquiry into Donald Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort's foreign business connections with a tip towards Russia. The FBI is investigating, or a preliminary inquiry is what it's called, not just Manafort, but 2 others affiliated with the Trump campaign. That is the word coming down tonight. So that's where we are. Let's bring in our panel. Charlie Hurt, political columnist for The Washington Times. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio. And syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Robbie Mook, on a conference call, pointed to this. Harry Reid pointed to it as well in a letter. It looks like there is some inkling that this is happening in a preliminary sense. Thoughts on all this?
What a way to end this campaign. I mean, it's incredible. What the Democrats are saying is, wow, the FBI could have looked into Russia trying to put its thumb on the scale, and they've turned a blind eye. Instead, Comey is being pressured by Republicans in Congress to influence the election. It's just a huge, huge mess. I don't know exactly what crime or potential crime the FBI is investigating in terms of Paul Manafort and his connections to Russia, but it sounds like this might go on after the election.
Yeah, apparently Manafort does not know of any investigation. He has not been contacted, according to NBC. And it seems we don't have a full-scale investigation confirmed. What they're calling it is a preliminary inquiry. I don't know how far that goes.
The bottom line, I think, this will certainly turn off voters who haven't yet made up their minds and who find the choices pretty disheartening and unappetizing on both sides. That's what these kinds of things do.
One thing is clear, Charlie, that this has turned what was praise for the FBI director. Yeah. Here's some of that from Democrats before.
I am grateful for the professionalism of the FBI and the Department of Justice, and I repeat that I made a mistake using personal email, and I regret that very much.
There was an extensive, as you know, Brett, investigation by the FBI under the direction of a wonderful and tough career public servant, Jim Comey.
I don't know whether your family's watching this, but I hope that they are as proud of you as I am.
James Comey, I do think that in all of the government, he is a man of integrity and honesty.
Now, a few days later, actually a few weeks later, this is a different tone.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election.
And this letter came out Friday, kind of raising questions, but not really answering any questions. And then the FBI director had to backtrack on the letter. He said, yeah, you're right, this can be seriously misconstrued.
Getting involved in the election, this close to the election, is just wrong. I think he was excessively careless in this position of making this statement. I think he's hurt the Bureau. I think he's hurt the justice.
I think this was a very serious error in judgment by the director.
So what do you make of this? I mean, obviously you could point to Republicans too.
Sure. And this is Washington. Everybody, it depends on which way the wind is blowing. The stakes are very high for the country and with this election. But for no one are the stakes higher than for the FBI right now. If, in fact, this goes forward and Hillary Clinton loses the election and it turns out there's nothing but yoga emails on the server or completely irrelevant, harmless emails, it's going to be devastating for the FBI. And I think they just raise the stakes a little bit more with this new information about Paul Manafort. And it's just, and as Mara said, what a way to end this campaign on. Charles.
Look, this is one of the reasons that the Trump phenomenon happened in the first place. The rank hypocrisy of the two sides is simply staggering, and I don't think it's ever been shown in such relief. 6 weeks ago or so, he's a great man, and now he's a villain simply because he came out on the other side. Remember, for a year we had been saying the most important event for Hillary was the Comey primary, and she won the Comey primary, but what we didn't know is that there was a recount, and she lost the recount. And as a result of that, we are in a position where we have no idea what the underlying offense might be, or even how probable it is that there is any offense in the emails. And we're going to have to go into the election in the booth, the voting booth, not knowing and having to guess one way or the other how guilty she is. But I think the real problem is, regardless of what's in these emails, the recount, the fact that he's reopened the issue, has not only reopened the investigation, but reopened all of the elements surrounding the email and the history of her corruption and the stories that we're getting now from the Wall Street Journal and others about the infighting over looking into her foundation, the infighting in the FBI. So all of that stuff, which had been stuffed under by Comey's conclusion not to prosecute, is all out there in a way that the Clinton campaign cannot handle because it's simply overwhelming.
We're going to take a break and go into the WikiLeaks developments and a couple of interesting elements. But Mara, we talk about Paul Manafort, but there's some, through these WikiLeaks emails, ties that John Podesta had to Russia and investments that he had, that he took stock and put it in his daughter's company. And there's some Russia connection there as well.
But I think it's hard to compare the two. First of all, Russia, as we know from 17 intelligence agencies, hacked Democratic officials' emails for the suspected purpose of hurting Hillary Clinton's campaign. There is no kind of love affair between the Democratic presidential candidate and Vladimir Putin. And Donald Trump has gone out of his way in very specific ways and general ways to express solidarity with Russian positions, with Putin's, even the way he discusses issues. So I think it's hard to compare those two things. There's no doubt that
my point is there's another tie.
There is definitely another tie, but the Trump campaign's ties to Russia are something we've never seen before.
More about WikiLeaks and the state of the race when we come back.
I did not receive any questions from CNN. As a Christian woman, I understand persecution, but I will not sit here and be persecuted because your information is totally false. What you're telling the American
Podesta's
people,
email.
Well, Podesta's emails were stolen. You're so interested in talking about stolen
So you
material.
deny it.
You're like a thief that want to bring into the night the things that you found that was in the gutter. I am not going to try to validate falsified information.
If Reince Priebus gave me the answers to a debate or the questions, so he gives me the questions and answers to the debate, and he got caught like Donna Brazile was caught, it would be the biggest story in the history of the New York Times, okay? Donna Brazile gets caught, as we discussed, giving her the questions to a debate. Hardly anybody talks about it. If Hillary has the answers and questions to the debate, she should have stood up and said, ladies and gentlemen, I have been given the questions to the debate, and it's not a problem. She didn't do that.
Donna Brazile, the interim head of the DNC, in the WikiLeaks now, there's another series of emails in which she tells Hillary Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta, one of the questions directed to HRC tomorrow is from a woman with a rash. Her family has lead poison, and she will ask what, if anything, Hillary will do as president to help the people of Flint. This is one day before the CNN debate in Flint, Michigan. This follows the March 12th ahead of the town hall also put on by CNN. Remember, she was a CNN contributor. From time to time, I get the questions in advance. I'll send a few more, though some questions Roland submitted. Roland Martin. She actually sent the detailed question for that town hall, and now there are others surfacing here in these emails. CNN has said that they accepted her resignation on October 14th. They put out the statement today, though, and said they were completely uncomfortable with all of this. Charles.
Well, they should be. This is a dirty trick. It's not new in the history of our politics, but when you discover it, it's a serious offense, and the people have to be fired. But let's remember, this was not in the general election. This was in the primary, and it was part of a larger scheme, clearly, to make sure that she won the primaries and not Bernie Sanders.
Well, this doesn't exactly fire up the Bernie Sanders folks.
Well, I mean, if you're, of course, on the other hand, what her answer will be, yes, but he's supporting me. Well, that's because he doesn't have a lot of alternatives.
But doesn't it get to Trump's whole thing, which is there are people working either in the government or in the media to help Hillary Clinton because she's establishment and elite?
Well, it certainly means that within the Democratic Party, there was a huge tendency among the elites to want to get rid of this outsider, Sanders, and socialist Sanders, and go with what they thought is a safer bet, and also the political machine that has controlled the party for so many years. And the fact that you get some of this in the general election, I think, is more a reflection of the general liberal bias in the media, which has been with us for 30 or 40 years. It's not a source of surprise, but that it should be this blatant, I think, is rather shocking.
I should point out that Trump soundbite came from my interview 2 hours before the FBI announcement on Friday, where he was going on the riff about the system is rigged.
Yeah, I mean, this is what he's been saying about the Democratic primaries. He tried to make a plea to Bernie Sanders voters to say, look at what Debbie Wasserman Schultz did. Now we have this evidence of Donna Brazile. The fix was in. They were all for Clinton from the beginning. And he was right. Now, what effect will that have now? You know, I think any Bernie Sanders voter who's a holdout at this point is going to still be a holdout and probably will vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. I think that to the extent that Sanders has brought as many people of his that he could, that's done. But this really does corroborate what Trump has been saying.
Big picture, state of the race. I mean, it had been closing before all of this stuff.
Yeah, Donald Trump had clearly been, recovering from a really terrible couple of weeks, and I think all of this stuff is helping him. I think there's real panic that you sense in the Clinton campaign right now, and I think that Donald Trump is actually doing a very good job of sort of going up to the line. Thank you, Huma. Thank you, Anthony. Going up to the line, which people like, his supporters like, but not going over the line. Back to the Donna Brazile thing. Obviously she's an ardent partisan, but she's not a hack, and I can't think of anybody in Washington that has as much respect on both sides of the aisle as she has. And for her to have been caught in this way in the primary, basically our version of insider trading is absolutely astonishing. And I thought that I was cynical enough to evaluate this place, and apparently I'm not.
Yeah, I'd be more than completely uncomfortable. That is it for this special report. Fair, balanced, and unafraid. Happy Halloween. Be careful out there. On the Record with Brit Hume, who's not scary, starts right now.